This video is about neuroscience and the place that your brain plays in forming good habits. I'm hoping to also use this to get better at gaming, at Dota 2, among other things. All right, let's check it out.
Is StarTalk Sports Edition. Neil deGrasse Tyson here, your host and your personal astrophysicist. And today, we're going to address issues that relate to your power and strength of mind, especially with regard to high-performance athletes. But of course, advice there could probably apply to all of us at all times. I got with me my co-host, Chuck Nice. Chuck.
Hey, Neil. Okay.
All right.
Oh, it didn't work. I was trying to use my mind to move some stuff in your room.
Yeah, no, it didn't work. No.
Yeah, I was trying to tap into the force, man.
Yeah, if you could do that, you are in the wrong profession at this moment. Okay?
That's so true.
I just say, and I got Gary Riley. Gary.
Hi, Neil. I am practicing nothing right now, just
Good.
being
Thank
stationary.
You. Thank you. I like a stable world, please. Thank you. Gary is a former soccer pro in the UK and soccer announcer. What did you have in mind for this episode?
So we regularly look to the elite athletes to display the kind of supercharged performance and navigate under intense pressure. We want them to have unbreakable concentration. We want them to have off-the-chart cognitive skills. But what if you're not one of these elite athletes? What if you're a first responder? What if you're a surgeon, a police officer, a lawyer, a pilot, a single parent of 3?
So basically, easier jobs than high-level gaming.
Are the demands on your strength of mind not as intense? So, how do I develop this type of mindset? How do I maintain this type of mindset? Right, they're the questions. For this, we need answers.
So who are you going to call?
The good doctor, Dr. Heather Berlin.
Heather
Not
Berlin.
only is Dr. Heather Berlin, yay, a good friend to StarTalk, but a neuroscientist, clinical psychologist, associate professor of psychiatry and neuroscience at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, New York. So, is eminently qualified to guide us through this particular area of science.
I love that you turned her School of Medicine into a positive affirmation. The Icahn School of Medicine.
I do my best.
It's ICAHN. Heather, how do you pronounce that boy's name?
Icon, like
Icon.
Yes.
All right.
Tomato.
No, that's how you'd say it in the UK. Icon.
Probably, yeah.
Icon. Well, and I believe I can. Oh dear, I believe I can.
Or Grey Poupon. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, especially during any game or any contest in high-level sports, but especially in playoffs and in the final games, the coaches will always tell you need a winning state of mind, and
Yeah, super true. I mean, sometimes people say at the highest level, like a Dota mid laner for a top NA team recently told me in a Dota 2 interview I did for the DPC. They said, at the highest level, mind is everything, which already uses the qualifier at the highest level. So you first have to be physically, mechanically at the highest level, and then mind is everything. It's like saying, when you're really rich, money doesn't matter. It's all about fulfillment. You first have to be really rich. Okay, so the point is, you can't say mind is everything, because obviously you need to be mechanically very strong. But once you're all roughly playing at the top 0.01% mechanically, mind can have a huge fluctuation in your skill, and a greater fluctuation than 24 hours of rigorous practice over a week. So that's what they mean when they say that, right? So the mindset to win, I've experienced it myself. It's a huge difference. If you're feeling confident, it can be raining. It can be, you can have detractors, people that don't believe in you. You can have negative omens, some superstitions that you believe in that normally hold sway over you. And you just let them all slide off of you. But if you're in a bad state of mind, every condition could be perfect. And you'll start making things up like, I need a new mouse pad. This chair is not good. Why did that guy look at me like that? Oh, I'm stressed. I'm nervous. What if I... So it's a huge difference, obviously. And a lot of that is just in changing your mindset. So nothing about the world needs to change, even when you feel a lot needs to change. I personally had this problem where if I'm unconfident, if I feel underprepared, if I'm unhappy, insecure, or sad, or whatever, right, then I have way more issues and that I attribute towards external factors.
Just like in life. And that's an interesting sort of extra thing that players are going to have to worry about beyond their physical conditioning after they spend all those hours in the gym, running up and down stairs, whatever it is. And so
Where are you sitting? Is this the normal room? Yeah, this is my normal room, but I'm not using green screen right now.
what makes some people better at focus of mind than others? And can you train this? Is this something that while I'm in the gym, pumping iron or whatever I'm doing, is there something else I can do with my mind so that in the moment, when the time comes, I am ready?
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed this when you're in the gym? It's better to think about and look at your muscle group that you're exercising than to let your mind wander and scroll Twitter on your second hand. I feel like it trains you a lot better when you're... But it's hard because what gym? Yeah, good point. I mean, I've gone before.
Yeah. I mean, just like muscles in your body, the mind or the brain, you can think of it like a muscle, right? And the more you exercise certain skills, the more you can develop them. Now, there are individual differences in our ability, say, to focus our attention or to sort of ignore negative thoughts or counterproductive thoughts that you might be having that can interfere with your performance. But there's a level of kind of cognitive control that we need in order to maintain focus and kind of dismiss these negative thoughts that might pop into our minds. And you can practice this skill. And there are particular parts in the frontal lobe that you can use to gain strength, let's say, in this cognitive capacity.
Just to be clear, it's not just negative thoughts, it's just distracting thoughts, right? Any thought that takes you away from where you are, it wouldn't even have to be negative, I presume.
Yes. And one of the practices is mindfulness and mindful meditation, where you have a thought, it could be a thought that's not relevant to the game or a negative thought, and you just let it pass like a cloud passing by. You don't attach to it. You don't let it take you down another path where you get distracted. So we can't stop these intrusive thoughts from coming in, but you can allow them to pass and not sort of attend to them so that you can maintain the focus on the thing you need to be paying attention to in that moment.
So is that why individual stress levels vary? Because they've attached themselves to this passing cloud rather than just let it fly by. Because you hear people say all the time, I've had enough. Well, who decides that? What is it that's gone on in your mind that's decided that that's the point
that's your threshold?
Cross? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. There are two things. One is that there are individual differences in terms of our, what we call like tolerance for distress. Okay. So some people have a higher threshold. They can maintain a lot of stress and not sort of break. Others' threshold is lower. But yes, anybody who follows, let's say, one of these negative thoughts down a path, let's say the thought is, I'm not good enough. And then it goes to, oh, I'm not good enough. That means I'm going to do terrible in this game and I'm going to lose and the whole team's going to be disappointed in me and on and on and on. Yeah. Of course, anybody would start to get upset by those thoughts.
I found that to be an interesting, I watched roughly until here, or 7 minutes, we're at 6. I found it to be interesting. Anyone that would follow those thoughts would be upset. I wonder if that is true. I want to believe it is true. Sometimes something can upset me or you or anyone, and you wonder, would it upset someone else? But here it is the act of following an intrusive thought means unwanted, right? Only you can define if a thought is intrusive. So if an unwanted and intrusive thought comes, it's you following that down the rabbit hole that makes you upset about it. That can make you upset or stressed. Like, are there people that follow an intrusive thought and then don't get upset? She's like, anyone would get upset. I think it makes sense that anyone would be upset.
So the more you follow them and let them lead you down this negative thought path, the more likely you are going to get more stressed out. So the idea is to have a negative thought and just let it go and keep redirecting your attention to something positive or to the task at hand. I got to catch this ball right. I can't let that thought take me away.
Sometimes there's a negative comment in Twitch chat. swarmed by positive comments, and it is some kind of, I tell myself it is humility and the absence of narcissism and seeking sycophancy or whatever that makes me read out the negative ones in order to keep myself honest and to be self-critical, because I like to be improving myself all the time. So I feel like if I gloss over all the negatives and if I read the positives, because I'm reading it in my voice, it's like I'm constantly seeking self-validation and approval and positive comments, and that's the only way I can function, which I want to function and have self-worth without any of that, right? So by reading the negative comment, I'm like, well, let's test my resolve in dealing with this. But it does mean that I give it attention when many other chatters that are having a good time and that are saying neutral or good things, they may be wondering, why did you read that one in particular? Right? It's a kind of, I don't know if it's true. Like, I feel like it is like humility or honesty and not seeking out only the others, right? Of course, people in general are more attracted to bad news than good news because it helps you with survival. So when you see something negative, you feel like you have to deal with it, you have to remove it or whatever. And when it's all positive, it's easier to just accept the state of being. But it is probably not healthy to delve into every negative comment, no matter if you currently have the patience or tolerance to deal with it, because eventually you'll be that guy, like the football player from the UK said, I've had enough.
Chuck, I keep hearing in my head, don't worry, be happy.
Yep. It works.
There are a bunch of studies that show that music can actually change your mood and help you adapt to stress. And people are like, neuroscience.
I feel angry too when someone says something negative to a good person like Grubby, and I feel guilty if caused the same type of problem to a streamer. Right, so in essence, it's not just about me, right? If I read out a negative comment that annoys me a bit, even if I have the equanimity of spirit to deal with it, I can make someone else in my chat that just wants a good time feel worse.
Scientists are working together to
Grubby, your volume is low compared to the video. Can you turn the video down a bit? Yeah.
create playlists that can either help increase your attention and focus or put you in a better mood. So music.
Heather, we saw that in the Olympics where the guys coming out, the swimmers were coming out, and everybody had their little headphones on, and you wonder, what are they listening to? I want to know.
Music.
I hate to interrupt. Can we just sing another song? I can't get that damn song out my head now.
Baby
Oh my God.
No.
Dare you?
Sure.
But one thing to say though about music is that it does impact the subcortical, evolutionarily older parts of your brain, like the basal ganglia and the emotional centers that are below the cortex. And that's why people, for example, with Alzheimer's, when they're having dementia and like sort of decreased cortex, if you play music for them, it can integrate them because it's these more subcortical, deeper.
I heard about that. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Was it Oliver Sacks that went down that route with musicphilia?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a film on it.
It's Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett had advanced dementia and was able to sing all of his songs. If you started him off, all you had to do was, I left my heart, and then he would boom into it.
Because it's instantiated in the brain like riding a bike. Once you hit the basal ganglia, it's like this sort of, it automatically just goes, like you flow into it. You don't have to think about it.
Heather, just spend a minute about what is the basal ganglia?
It's a complex subcortical structure and it's broken up into different parts, but it's involved in what we call implicit memory, especially motor memory. So when you're first learning to ride a bike, you have to think about it, right? You're using your cortex. And once it becomes, after practice, it becomes automatic, then it gets moved into that basal ganglia, which means you don't have to think about it the next time you ride a bike.
Yeah. Okay, that's what a psychological model called the chimp paradox, where they said you have a monkey, a human, and a machine. The human has to think about everything. Do I want to move where I work and have a 1.5 hour commute, but I get to live in a bigger place? Or do I want to stay here? I have only a 20-minute commute, but the apartment is absolutely tiny. This is a decision you don't make on automation because you've never made the decision before. And it deserves a lot of thinking, balancing, and weighing, and even discussing. But taking your hand off of a hot stove that you accidentally laid your hand on is so fast you couldn't have consciously thought about it. That's where you want to get pressing your BKB when Sven's Stormhammer is flying towards you. You don't want to think, okay, I have a BKB, a hammer is coming towards me. What's the hotkey? It's V. Should I use it now or should I use it later? Yeah, let's use it now. Oh, I'm dead already. Right? So I think you probably learn faster when you're 16 than when you're 48. But that's a part that a lot of sometimes chatters refuse to understand is you've been playing for X how long, and how come you're slow with this or that? Well, first of all, I'm not 16. And secondly, I've never been in this particular situation before, so how could my automation take over?
Right.
But that's also the part of the brain that's affected in Parkinson's disease. And so it's involved in lots of different things. But if you think about automatic behaviors that we need to not be able to think about, like walking, we can't always have to think about how to walk.
Right.
Basal ganglia will control that. But music sort of, it gets instantiated in that part of the brain.
Yeah. And you know what's cool is all this, what Heather's, when you talked about underneath, it might be important to talk to the audience about the layer cake of the.
As someone who started learning Japanese at 30, alongside other 20-year-olds, I definitely agree with that. I mean, you might just be worse than them, Genki Chomp. Or both. You're older and you're worse at learning language. It's possible, right? But I think it's true. I think it is the age thing, for sure. No, I was best in my classes. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, no, but it's definitely true. And I feel it as well.
Brain, because that's something
Have you considered you might be stunted?
I learned from Heather in just a offline conversation that I did not know about, that your brain.
All this sounds neat, right? I don't think we're really learning much. I mean, so far it's all good, but I'm hoping they get to actionable parts, how you can improve your learning while you're doing it or while you're not. I mean, I roughly know what they could say. When you're doing the dishes, think about the piano routine you've been practicing. Play it in your head. I used to do this too for games. I walked to my second WCG World Championship that I would end up winning. Every day I chose to walk instead of take the bus so that I would have time to myself. It was really cold. I would wear a scarf and gloves. It was in Germany, and I chose to take a 30-minute walk rather than take the player bus because I didn't want to hear everyone screeching on the bus and distracting me with distracting thoughts. And I walked like this through the street, sometimes eyes closed, not over roads with cars, on the sidewalk. And I had my hands in front of me, and I kept doing this. And in my head, I was playing games. I would move my Blade Master and regroup my Raider and snare, move the Raiders away from the Demon Hunter with the Orb of Venom and snare again. And people must have thought it looks really weird that I'm chatting in real life, but it worked for me.
Is built platform on top of platform on top of platform because of evolution, right?
Yes, that is how it evolved. You explained it just better than me. I mean, I should ask you the questions. But yeah, I mean, sometimes this subcortical structures are called the reptilian brain or the lizard brain.
Oh, yeah.
This limbic system that's like your raw sensations, like emotions, anger, and it's when other animals have to act on reflex and respond to their environment very quickly without this thinking about the consequences.
This reminds me of my Dota teammates, like the ancient apparition that actually tipped my shadow, not Shadow Fiend, my Outworld Destroyer yesterday because he accidentally triggered BKB. Like in the Tidehunter game, the 1 hour game, he's like, you press BKB by accident, tip, without actually thinking about the consequences, that he may feel embarrassed, humiliated, attacked by his own teammate with such a fragile ego that he immediately took that as, they're all against me, they're always against me, I'm going to destroy my items now, be AFK for 20 minutes, and then at the 60-minute mark, I'm going to farm Stygian Desolator and keep it in my inventory so that you can't use it. Yeah, now I understand why everyone calls each other animals in Dota.
The parts of the brain that we have inherited from our other animal ancestors. But then we evolve this larger layer, this cortex, which allows us to feel those impulses, but then decide whether we want to act on them or not. And that gives us more control over our behavior. But it also gives us more responsibility. We're more responsible for our actions.
Yes.
Doctor, I must ask you, As in life or in sport, the ability to have unbreakable concentration is vital in certain moments. Why is it that some people have it and some people just get distracted by anything and everything?
It really has a lot to do with that ability to have cognitive control, right? There's a part of the brain called the anterior cingulate that has to do with like when there's conflict, when there's different things that you can pay attention to. Some people are able to tune it out and remain focused. But if you don't have a lot of cognitive control, if you haven't exercised these parts of your brain, or you just happen to be genetically born with, wired differently or a smaller prefrontal cortex or anterior cingulate, you have a more difficult time.
Any smaller prefrontal cortex in chat?
Tuning out the noise so that you can focus on the signal. So it's like people with ADHD, they get very easily distracted.
Hello.
Yeah, the people who are
Squirrel.
But yeah, I mean I think that the people who are elite sports players might be the types of people that have a greater ability to do that, and then they go on to sort of perfect that skill, right? So if you're just so distracted all the time, you might be really good athletically, physically, but you're not able to keep your head in the game, and you won't make it to those elite levels.
That is absolutely true.
Why is concentrating so exhausting? Speaking as somebody who suffers off the charts ADHD, literally off the charts. When I concentrate for long periods of time, I'm literally I am physically tired when it's over.
Wow.
What is happening?
So because it's an active process, it's your prefrontal cortex has to be activated to decrease the activation that's happening in those subcortical, like animalistic areas. And it's a constant process. And the second you let go of that, you let go of that suppression by the prefrontal cortex, it allows all the impulses to come up. So for example, if you're in areas and it's the activation that's happening in those subcortical, like animalistic areas, and it's a constant process. And the second you let go of that, you let go of that suppression by the prefrontal cortex, it allows all the impulses to come up. So for example, if you're sleep deprived, if you're hungry, if you've been drinking, all of those things lower the prefrontal cortex activation and allow these impulses to kind of take over, right? But if you're somebody who is prone to, let's say your limbic system is louder and stronger than some other people. So it's harder for you to control it. It takes more cognitive energy, and therefore you're more tired at the end of the day.
I'm a caveman.
So you're suppressing feelings like, I want to dance, I want to work out, I want to eat, I want to sing, but I need to focus on this French book. And it's like, you're keeping all of it down, and then you open the lid, and it's like, whoa, party time! Whoa. But also it took so much energy to keep all that down that you don't feel like doing those things anymore.
She just called you a reptile.
That's what I said. I'm a dumbass caveman. That's what it is.
Reptilian caveman. You're not even a caveman. You're a reptile.
That's true.
I think there's anything wrong with that.
I'm a sleep stack.
But let me say one thing. Let me say one caveat. Some people who have the opposite problem, when they're over-controlled, when they have too much prefrontal cortex activation, have other types of problems. They ruminate a lot. They're over-anxious. They can barely function because they keep thinking about the potential negative consequences of things, and therefore they can't be spontaneous. So, and they're inflexible. So there can be problems on the other side of the spectrum as well. It's all about balance.
Okay. All right.
Is there a way that you can balance? Or are you just stuck with whatever you've got?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Therapy. No, you.
No. Look at that. Nice little plug for Heather's business.
There you go.
Yeah.
The
1-800.
All right.
No, but,
All right. Are you having trouble concentrating?
but everybody, if you think of it like your genetics predict like what your boundaries are, where you're at, and then with therapy or practice, you can get to a higher or a lower level within your genetic bounds, right? So Chuck, for example, if you lean more on the sort of impulsive, spontaneous side, which is good because it helps with being a good comedian, but maybe for other things it's not that helpful.
Yeah, like marriage.
Is he a divorced comedian?
You can work on being more consciously cognizant of those behaviors, and it just takes more work for you to think about it and then actively sort of engage your prefrontal cortex to suppress some of those impulses.
Just to be clear, Heather, did you imply
Mm-hmm.
that since alcohol is one of several factors that could disrupt the ability of your frontal cortex to tamp down your limbic
Impulses.
impulses, that when you see bar fights break out, it's because people's prefrontal cortex was losing control over the reptilian urges? And if that's the case, does that imply that were it not for our prefrontal cortex, we would all just be bar fighting all the time?
We pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you look at patients that have damage to their prefrontal cortex or brain lesions, it expresses itself in different ways. It's not always physical.
Isn't that called lobotomy? Like they used to remove it for some time, right? They haven't mentioned IQ, EQ, New C11. I always struggled with impulse control in Dota and other MOBAs, doing stupid risky moves, going all in wrong situations. I find that a very interesting problem to have, Grocker. I also take great risk in Dota. A lot of problems could be fixed if I don't take great risk. Right? So I'll farm under enemy tower, one more wave, copium. One more wave, and then I'll get away. They could be coming for me, but I'm too curious to find out if they are. And if I leave now, I'll never know. I am so curious, and I think there's a little bit of a gambler there in me, and I'm curiosity. When was the last time you were at a bar? I've been probably to 2 bars in the last 15 years.
Violence, but it could be that they have these verbal outbursts. You know, they don't have any filter on what they say, or they engage in other impulsive acts like that would get them into trouble. That if they otherwise had a prefrontal cortex, you know, they wouldn't do. Just like this, all the stupid things you do if you've ever been drunk.
Right.
You know, all those things are normally suppressed by the prefrontal cortex, but when you lower that inhibition, it allows all these basal basic impulses to come out. So whether it's alcohol, brain damage. Yeah.
Look at that. I have brain damage and I'm drunk right now. So
that means it's time to take a break. All right. When we return in this first interlude for StarTalk Sports Edition, we're talking about the power of mind, not to move objects, but to focus and to concentrate and to perform. When we return, we're going to find out what role your ego plays.
Ooh.
And more. Heather Berlin. I want to call her our special guest, but she's like a regular guest.
Anyone have any ego in Dota or in this chat right now? Personally, I don't. Like, it's really helpful not to have an ego so that you never feel offended. Yeah, it's great. Ego, Grubby danger zone. What? How could I have problems with ego? I've been aware that having too much ego is a problem for a long time. You would think that I solved it by now. No, it's not a problem for me. But we can look at this next time to solve other people's problems.